Inabe mesku makwandish makwandundum segin dunji nungum andego ashie ginzo ninmi odamino Madden Niishtana. Hello, greetings. My name is Looking Red Bear. I'm from Bear Clan. I'm from Sagin First Nation in Manitoba, Canada. Today is March 11th, and I will play Madden 20. So today, the terms I'm going to go over, or the term I'm going to go over, is cover, as it relates to the game of football. The Anishinaabe Moin term we're going to be using for cover is going to be Ogwajion, Ogwajion, Ogwajheon, Ogwajheon, Ogwazhe apostrophe on, Ogwajheon, Ogwajheon. So for that, we're gonna go over um, the defensive terminology for this. Hold on. I'll go to. Yeah, actually, no. I'll cover. I'll stay on offense and I'll go over what it would look like um, talking about it in defense. I'll just draw something up and I'll show you. So the term cover is going to be primarily be used by a defender. It's kind of a defensive term, cover. And offense, there's not too many situations where not too many teams will use the terminology cover on the offensive side of the football. That's primarily going to be used by the defensive backs, safeties, and the linebackers, as they have to go out and cover either a specific area of the football field or a specific man. So, like I said, the people that are going to be using the term cover are going to be the guys over top the receivers, the linebackers. The linebackers are the guys behind the defensive line. The safety is the last man, or usually the last two guys that are deepest on the defense. They're the last line of defense. They're the farthest back on the defense. And yeah, corners, DBs. So the term we're going to be using for cover, I will cover again in the future tense, will be ninwi ogwajeon, ninwi ogwajeon, ninwi ogwajeon. I will cover. So this would be said by a defender that knows they're covering on the passing down. So if they know it's going to be pass and they're likely to be covering either a receiver or a man in zone, it's either going to be a field. They're covering a part of the football field in zone coverage, and then in man coverage they're going to be locking down a specific receiver. So this kind of looks like man, kind of looks like zones, kind of looks like a cover one. So yeah, Niwi Ogwajion, I will cover. So this would be said by a defensive back on the defense. The guys in white right now on the screen, covering a receiver. Oh jeez. So let's go over that. Ninwi Ogwajion. Let's go over that on replay. So, who could say Ninwi Ogwajion would be the defensive backs, like I said, the linebacker, or the safeties? So the defensive backs, this is a linebacker, and then these are your DBs. So, Ninwi Ogwajion, this could be said by the defenders who are going to be out in coverage, or going to be covering. Ninwi Ogwajion, I will cover. So because this is a zone, primarily, they're going to be covering an area. I know they're lined up on a man right now. It looks like they're lined up. That's more just for spacing, I guess. But they're still going to be covering a receiver, whether it's in zone and a receiver enters their zone. See, like 36 here, this is a good example, is lined up on the number 2 receiver, the middle receiver. But he goes out and he covers the sideline. So it looks like he's covering 13, but then he actually pops out and covers 12. And then he takes the lower man. He covers the lower man. And then 13 is picked up by one of the 2 deep defenders. So right now they both back up, and it looks like 30 is covering 13, and then 26 is going to be covering either 13 or, well, I guess he provides help to both DBs and the safety. So the next term we'll go over is Ninwi Ogwajion. You will cover. So again, just to clarify the rules, if they know they're going to be in coverage, this could be said to any one of the guys covering to each other. That is covering. So the safety could say Ninwi Ogwajion to another defender that's in coverage, or a defensive lineman could say this to a defensive back that's going to be in coverage. So 90 could say this to 26 Ninwi Ogwajion. You will cover. You will cover. Ninwi Ogwajion. You will cover. And they all have someone to cover on this pass play. Now they could still say Ninwi Ogwajion on defense, or Ninwi Ogwajion if they're still unsure if it's going to be a pass play or run play. I just made it simple. I put no one in the backfield to clearly indicate that this is going to be a pass, because there's no threat of a run unless the quarterback decides to run it. But Philip Rivers is not a scrambling quarterback, so we don't have to worry about that. If you lose to Philip Rivers scrambling the football, then I could live with that. But you can't let... But if it was going to be a run play, the defense doesn't necessarily know that. So they still, in theory, could be talking in the sense that they're still trying to diagnose and get their assignments down. So if they're trying to communicate to each other and line up and make sure that they're going to be fundamentally sound and going to the right position, and everyone's on the same page with their responsibilities on this particular play, then in theory the defense could still communicate. Ginwi Ogwajion, Ginwi Ogwajion. I will cover or you will cover. And next we'll go over Ginwi Ogwajion. They will cover. So this could be said again, spectators, coaches, people on the sideline, describing what the defense is doing. Seattle's defense. They're going to be describing that, because they see no threat of a run. They know it's going to be a pass play. Let's say it's 3rd and 10, 4th and 10. They know that they're probably going to have to throw the football to get it, the yardage, the first down. So what could be said is they will cover. Winwi Ogwajion. Winwi Ogwajion. Winwi Ogwajion. Winwi Ogwajion. They will cover, and that's referring to all the defensive backs, all these guys out in coverage. So it's kind of referring to the back half of the defense, because as you can see, the defensive linemen, they're not really covering, they're rushing the quarterback, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, this is primarily a defensive back, linebacker, and safety term. Winwi Ogwajion. Winwi Ogwajion. And they're talking about covering. Like, as you can see in zone, they're kind of covering a field, like part of the field. As you can see, they make a square covering this half of the field. And there's a triangle on this side of the field. But then that triangle kind of makes another square with these guys. You need a defensive back to go more in depth. I'm an offensive line guy. This is just like a very brief Cole's Notes summary of like what coverage is. Like I said, I was an offensive lineman, so I didn't spend too much time in the DB room. But I do know a little bit and enough to get by for this language stuff. So they will cover Winwi Ogwajion. Then as you could see, like, these guys, like, it's a zone, so he's not really locked up on number 12. He's kind of maintaining his leverage, staying in his area. He's kind of guarding whoever comes into his zone, the area that he's responsible for. So he's supposed to go out anyways in this instance. So the first threat in this zone is going to be number 12. And then that's why these two safeties in that corner, they back up, because number 13, the receiver's threatening to go into either one of their zones, so that's why they back up with them. And then this linebacker is kind of responsible for the middle of the football field, so that's why he trails 13 or 86, but then he comes off of it when the pass play is still technically thrown close to him in his zone, so he's responsible for it, so he comes off of it. Once that ball is thrown and it's not a threat to the receiver catching it, he comes off of it and makes the tackle. And then same for this safety and this corner. They both back up deep because they're both responsible for a deep quarter of the football field. number 30 is kind of threatening it. So you can kind of see because actually, the computer messed up. This safety is not supposed to go. It's not supposed to be that. It's not supposed to go lateral. He steps out laterally. He takes himself out of position with his first step. He should have backed up first because whatever. Next we'll go over present tense. Nendu ogwajion. So for this we'll wait for the ball to be snapped for it to be considered present tense. So once the ball's snapped and they're talking about the term cover, it's now present tense. So nendu ogwajion can be said. Nendu ogwajion, I am covering. And any one of the defensive backs, the linebacker or the safeties, once the ball is snapped, could say this, even if it's a zone or man play, because now they're in the process. Their assignment is to cover once the ball is snapped, and they know it's a pass play. It's a clear indication that it's going to be pass. They would say, "Nendu ogwajion, I am covering." So any one of these, even if it's zone and they're technically not, there's no guy in their zone to cover, that person's still responsible for part of the football field, or you can't just run off if there's no one around them. Like if it's a zone play and you're assigned to cover like part of the football field, you're supposed to go cover that part of the football field. You don't just run around and do whatever you want. So nendu ogwajion, I am covering. So once the ball is snapped, play's active, they know it's a pass play. Nendu ogwajion. The same will be said for gedu ogwajion, you are covering. So again, in theory, this would be said to anyone on defense speaking to a defender that's covering. So again, it's really unlikely that a defensive lineman is going to be engaged with an offensive lineman and then have time to say this. But theoretically, for this video, the defensive lineman could say this to Gendu Ogwajion to a defender that's in coverage, because at no point, unless it's a zip coverage and they're supposed to peel out. We'll get into variations later if we get there. Gendu Ogwajion, you are covering. So 26 could say this to 36. Gendu Ogwajion. Gendu Ogwajion. Gendu Ogwajion. And then I'll go over they are covering. So again, anyone watching that's not on the football field, ideally, could be describing what the whole defense is doing. So the term for that would be Wendu Ogwajion. They are covering. And as you can see, they're talking. The back half of the defense, they do go out and cover the receivers that go in the pass routes. Wendu Ogwajion. 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 Alright, and then we'll finish off with past tense. Ningyo Guajion. So this could be said by any one of the defenders. They're talking to someone else on the defense, speaking about what they did on the previous play. So again, we wait for a score, out of bounds, or a tackle to indicate that the play is dead. The referees will give us a clear indication. So this play is dead and becomes past tense once this receiver 81 hits the ground. So he's down on the ground and now it's past tense. So the term we could use for that is Nenge Ogwajion. Nenge Ogwajion. I covered. And any one of the defenders that was out in coverage could say this. Just generally speaking, like back to the huddle talk or whatnot. Nenge Ogwajion. I covered. Next we'll go over Gengi Ogwajion. Gengi Ogwajion. So this could be said by anyone that was in coverage, or even hypothetically the defensive lineman now could say this again to the guys in coverage after the play is done. So it's actually 99 here. He pursues the play, he's no longer engaged, and he's close enough now. Wingi Ogwajion. Wingi Ogwajion. And he could be saying this to the defensive backs that were in coverage. And let's say 26. Wingi Ogwajion. Wingi Ogwajion. They covered. And he's talking about kind of what these two defenders did. They covered and they made the tackle. Number 30. Wingi Ogwajion. Wingi Ogwajion. And he can in theory be talking about the defensive backs. Or you could say Kingi Ogwajion. And you could still be talking about the ones that were in coverage. So I guess, yeah, Gingi Ogwajion and Wingi Ogwajion. It's going to be not similar instances that they could say it. I guess if you wanted to be more specific, you could talk about, say, Gingi Ogwajion to the two defenders that made the tackle, or whoever makes the tackle. If they have to come out of their coverage and then make the tackle, then he could say Gingi Ogwajion to those two defenders. But if you wanted to say Wingi Ogwajion to describe what all the defensive backs were doing and all the linebackers or linebacker, he could say in that sense if he's speaking generally to the crowd, Wingi Ogwajion, Wingi Ogwajion, because he's referring to what everyone back here did. Now let's try to say those terms live as they happen. Ninwi Ogwajion. Nindu Ogwajion. Ninki Ogwajion. Ninwi Ogwajion. Nindu Ogwajion. Ninki Ogwajion. Ninwi Ogwajion. Ginwi Ogwajion. Gandu Ogwajion. Gangi Ogwajion. Gain Rio Guajion. Gain Rio Guajion. Gain Duo Guajion. Gain Duo Guajion. Gain Gio Guajion. Gain Rio Guajion. Gain Duo Guajion. Gain Gio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Duo Guajion. Win Gio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Duo Guajion. Win Gio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Duo Guajion. Win Duo Guajion. Win Gio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Rio Guajion. Win Duo Guajion. Win Gio Guajion. Alright, hope that made sense. That one was a little bit more confusing even for myself because, like I said, I played a lot more offense when I played football, so I'm not as well versed or strong on the defensive terms, but I do understand the base concepts and terminology and what's trying to be accomplished on defense enough. For tomorrow's video or the next day, we'll probably go over the term step as it relates to football. Everyone has a first step, or stepping is very important. Footwork is incredibly important in the game of football. So we'll go over step, dakoki, as it relates to the game of football. So like the video, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Chimigwij, and I'll see you next time.